final bosses are the best, aren't they? The final roadblock between you and victory. Everything you learned is put to the ultimate test, and the game pulls all the stops to give you an experience you'll never soon forget. Too bad these are just a few examples of when this is done poorly. To be on the list, these final bosses need to do a bad job at truly testing you, whether an unfair challenge, a lack of a challenge, or disregard it altogether. The build-up wasn't there, or it just wasn't worth it, and the fun factor especially makes a difference. Since this is my least favorite final bosses list, a couple things need to be said. First, this is entirely my opinion. You'll likely agree or disagree with the choices I made, and that's perfectly okay. Second, these are final bosses we're talking about, so spoilers are aplenty. I'll put a timestamp above in case you want to skip the entry you don't want spoiled. But with that said, we're gonna dive right into it. Let's roast these bosses. Indie games sure have shaken up the industry, haven't they? Some indie games are even considered better than many AAA games. Bendy and the Ink Machine sadly isn't one of those titles. If you like it, that's fine, but to me, it became too ambitious for its own good. I admired the presentation and the story as a concept, but it went a little over its inky head to be the next FNAF. Case in point, the battle against the Ink Demon. It's an okay design, even if he took too much inspiration from Mugshot. To start, you need to flip the switches to open the doorway to the next area while the demon goes supersonic racing. Once you get through, make the demon charge into the ink vats to enter the final area, play the tape, and finally end your story. The main problem is the gameplay, specifically your first-person view. It can be hard to see where the demon charges, leading to unfair deaths that become annoying roadblocks with the infinite lives you have. Plus, for something the game has been building up to, it feels silly. The music definitely makes up for it, but, well, maybe other players were scared of it, especially the first time, but looking back, yeah, no, not by the Phantom Blood's rejected cousin. I have the sudden urge to play Epic Mickey. The Arkham series has hosted some fantastic bosses. Mr. Freeze in Arkham City, Poison Ivy in Arkham Asylum, Deathstroke in Arkham Origins, something in Arkham Knight, maybe? But if you ask me, the black sheep of the series hands down is Arkham Origins Blackgate. It had some okay bosses. Then you have your final confrontation with Catwoman. You fought her once before as the tutorial boss, so I'm surprised that she was your final foe, but let down with the result. It's a beefed up version of the tutorial, countering her moves and dealing damage, but instead of 2 hits, now it's 3 hits! Oh, the ingenuity! But once you clear the health bar, she pulls a Copperhead from Origins and attacks you using illusions. Counter the illusions and eventually you'll win. While the segment is cool to see, it's essentially a QuickTime event. A little disappointing, in all honesty. I'm not saying Catwoman as a boss wouldn't work, but the execution felt lackluster. I'll just put this entry behind bars and call it a night. Hey, if Arkham never followed up on the Suicide Squad plot twist, why should I? Many years ago, I did a list similar to this, and last time, I put the Highbreed from Ben 10 Alien Force on the DS as a weak final boss. An auto-scrolling boss never worked well with me, so it was honestly an easy pick despite the great song behind it. I immediately regretted that when I realized the console version was even worse. The Highbreed are known to be strong creatures, immune to harm except for high temperatures. So how do you make that an exciting boss fight? Hit the console, flip the arena, hit one of 4 ceiling switches, rinse and repeat, and that's it. You don't even get a satisfying ending like the DS game, just getting yeeted out of the ship. You can stun him with a vat of hot gas, why does he even have that? But it isn't necessary, as you can ignore him and his cronies completely and still win the fight. Other bosses in the Alien Force game weren't exactly good, but they were at least still fights. This Crossover games can be awesome. Combining series together can make for some interesting scenarios and see how each series reacts to one another. One such crossover is BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle. With BlazBlue, Persona 4, Under Night, and Ruby all together, the possibilities for a final boss were endless. Maybe a Dark Beast Grimshadow? Or maybe a hybrid of Terumi, Adachi, Hilda, and Salem? Or maybe a giant Beyblade. No boy. Meet System, or Cross-Dimensional Observation System. A device meant to observe, but instead uses the data to conquer the different worlds. Depending on which story mode you're going for, Ragna, you, Hyde, or Ruby, or even them all together, will go against this machine, and oh boy did I instantly miss the Takemisu Hachi. It'll use sword attacks and summon shadow duplicates of the main cast, but if it has any other attacks, you won't see them, due to you knocking it down and dealing more damage. And just when you think the next form will arrive, nope, that's it. The music itself puts up way more of an effort than the boss itself, which... seriously? A giant Beyblade? Who designed this and why? Even though there is a second story mode with a different final boss, I had to include System for just failing all expectations. The possibilities were there for a great final boss paying tribute to the series that came to be, but no. Beyblades. I never thought I'd miss tough fighting game bosses. Way to go, Cross Tag Battle! You made me miss Shao Kahn! You know something's wrong when you're missing this. Speaking of failing expectations, who's up for a quick time event? The boss! No, not that one. That one doesn't stink as much as this one. Heh, stink. The Paradox is easily my least favorite villain in the franchise, and nowhere else is that more obvious than his boss fight. Though boss fight isn't exactly the term I'd use. After chasing him above his hovercraft, well, you just press buttons, chase him again, hit buttons again, chase him again, hit buttons again, and somehow that counts as a win. I really wanted the satisfaction of beating this guy, this arrogant scum, and I don't even get to control it. Say what you will about Penelope's betrayal, this is just inexcusable. At least she had a pretty great fight. Quick-time events can make for good gameplay when done right, but this is just another example of when they're used poorly. It makes me want Sly 5 to be a real thing. Anything to wipe this final boss clean from my memory. Hey, I might have dated this video, but one can dream, can't we? It worked for Kingdom Hearts 3. Speaking of Kingdom Hearts, man, I'm on a roll with these segues today. Let's talk about Kingdom Hearts. The series is known for its bosses, some of them the best in all the video games. Final bosses tend to fare well, except when the games are on portables. Riku from 358 Days Super 2, Data Roxas from Recoded, whatever the heck they're gonna do with Union Cross, it never seemed to work out. Then you remember this final boss and all the pain it brought. Through trading cards. Whether you choose the GBA original or the remake, Ansem pales in comparison to Marluxia. So which one gets the entry? Both. Let's start with the remake first. The remake introduces the duel mechanic, where if you match the enemy's card values, you clash cards to hopefully deal massive damage. It's a system that can easily be abused, making most bosses a joke, Ansem being no exception. If you have the reflexes, you can duel him constantly and win, taking no damage. And with the high number deck you have, it's a feat anyone can accomplish. Then you have the original, that has the opposite problem. It's arguably the hardest final boss of the series. Ansem's attack hitbox is massive, inflicting massive damage, not helped with his fast attack pattern and your limited maneuverability. This wouldn't be too much of a problem, except the only way you can heal is through a Mickey card that spawns randomly. The top of your game might not even be enough to save you. Just pray for good luck and hope you can manage to take him down. It's funny how both versions are polar opposites, both too easy and too difficult. I still prefer the original over the remake, but that doesn't mean I like everything about it. The darkness is strong with this one. And it's grape flavored. Transformers Cybertron Adventures may be a panned game, but I still enjoy it for what it is. A fun on-rail shooter traveling through Cybertron is an exciting adventure. Right up until you eventually fight with Trypticon. Now, War for Cybertron's fight with Trypticon is amazing. It's honestly one of the best battles and a great tribute to Transformers. Adventures is a steep difficulty spike. Trypticon has a variety of attacks, from a mouth beam to missiles. You have to learn how to avoid and deal damage before you're forced into a driving segment. Once the segment ends, you fight him again until the very end. That doesn't sound awful until you see a little detail right there. Yes, the battle and driving segments are timed, and if you fail or run out of time, no checkpoints. You have to start at the very beginning of the boss fight. It's trial and error, but not the fun kind. You adapt quickly, or the game puts the hurt on you. Not helped by his massive amount of health compared to other bosses in the game. It should have been a fun and rewarding battle, but instead falls flat on its metallic face. One shall stand, and one shall fall. And that fall is a painful one. But not as painful as Rise of the Darkspark. I regret nothing. Okay, this game wasn't special, but maybe the final level can ease my mood. Oh, a boss rush. Alright, I'll bite. Well, that's all the bosses. Now for... easily the worst final boss in a Sonic game. Oh, come on! You thought Egg Nega Wisp was overused? Well, it was, but not as much as a Death Egg robot. No, not that one! Seriously, why was it called that? Most classic final bosses take 12 hits to finish compared to the normal 8. But this boss, this one takes 20 hits. 20! It has the classic moves you remember, but also spazzes out, ground stomps you, launches its fist, fires homing projectiles, and a pinch attack where if you don't hit it, you instantly lose the fight. All of that, plus the extra hits, makes for a boring final boss, with easily the worst final boss music the series has to offer. There's no satisfaction here, only sighs of relief that the battle is finally over. Suddenly I have more respect for the Force's copycat boss. Dark times these are indeed, my friends. You might have seen a pattern with the list that I tend to hate bosses that raise the difficulty, miss their potential, and aren't fun to fight. Well, get ready for all three at once, courtesy of Dissidia NT's Shinryu. The bosses of NT, while great in concept, were lacking in execution, even when backed by their amazing music. Shinryu takes that, throws it off a cliff, in a burning volcano, in the middle of Bermuda Triangle, on Friday the 13th! Next to a broken mirror, nonetheless. And, no, that's not exaggerating. For starters, Shinryu has some of the hardest HP attacks to dodge unless you're 100% ready for them. While it is a nice touch to have HP attacks that resemble the past bosses, it doesn't help that these are somehow made harder to avoid. Add attacks to easily raise the bravery and needing tons of damage just for an opportunity to lower its HP, and you have a challenge that seems harder than penance. He'll even use status effects like double bravery and doom in the second half, something no other boss has done before and makes the battle even worse. With enough time and a lot of patience, you will get it down, then be shocked when there's a Phase 2. Shinryu in its dark form stands more of a challenge despite it staying in one place, with claw swipes, dark energy, and once again, HP attacks that are difficult to dodge, one in particular. It's a very long battle that makes you tense for all the wrong reasons. It doesn't help that your allies get knocked down all the time, meaning less damage to Shinryu and the dragged out battle. Oh, and if you lose in Phase 2, you need to start all over again, wasting even more time that you arduously took to even get past Phase 1. Despite the amazing visuals and mesmerizing final boss music, not to mention the cutscene beforehand being any Final Fantasy fan's dream, it all boils down to a boss way too difficult for its own good. I'm sure there's some players who liked this boss, but like the game itself, it's sure to die a slow and painful death. Now, with all that said, I can think of one boss that easily tops Shinryu. But first, honorable mentions. And we have a ton of them. Yu Yevon, Final Fantasy X. A disappointing final phase that can easily end with one move, but Shinryu took the Final Fantasy slot, so it's here in honorable mentions. Nasty Nork from Spyro 1. It's sad when a trophy for your game easily says why the boss sucks. Then again, all of Spyro 1's bosses are bad, so I don't know what I was expecting. Neo Cortex from Crash 2. A chase through space. Not as fun as you would think. Destroyer from Borderlands. Everyone says this final boss was bad, and boy were they right. Yeah, just stay there and take the hints. You're doing just fine. Omega Scott from FNAF World. Unless you have the right party members, this boss will kick you to the curb again and again. It doesn't help that strobe lights plague the battle. Good song though, really underrated. Irwin from Pac-Man World 3. The same boss as last time, but with 2 captured ghosts and a really bad villain. Happy 25th anniversary, I guess. Polygon Man, PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale. Had I remembered this guy, he would have easily made the list. Though I guess the fact that he was forgotten speaks volumes to its quality. And finally, Demon Tide from Kingdom Hearts 0.2. The flair is there, backed by amazing music, but the boss has way too much health. Just when you think the shadows were a joke. At least Darkseid kept that tradition going. So, I'm sure you're sick of seeing bosses that have a difficulty spike. Okay, how about a boss where you do absolutely nothing and still win? Long story short, I went way too easy on this boss. Bowser may have had memorable fights before, but this? Oh dear lord, this boss checks everything off that a boss shouldn't be. Disinteresting music? Check. Relies too much on luck? Check. Nothing memorable? Yeah, let's make Bowser big. Again! And the worst part, like I said before, you can do absolutely nothing and still win! Let the computer play for you. You'll see that victory screen and be left with no reward in the slightest. I never thought Luigi wins by doing absolutely nothing could even be relevant during a boss fight. Now, why am I being so harsh on this boss? It is from Mario Party, a sub-series. It shouldn't be compared to other bosses. Well, I would agree, except past Mario Party bosses were done way better, especially with Bowser at the helm. There were stakes, interesting concepts, and more importantly, fun battles. At least Mario Party 10 lets you drive tanks and blast Bowser to Kingdom Koopa. Here you're just tossing dice. That's it. Even past bosses returning for Phase 2 feels lackluster. It just puts the cherry on top to one of my least favorite Mario parties ever. There are no redeeming factors here. It is easily my least favorite final boss, and may I never play Mario Party 9 ever again. on the PS2Man, and well, at least Super Mario Party did a good job. Needed more boards, but did the job right. Hi everyone, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, well, you know what to do. If you want to keep up with any updates, make sure to follow Twitter, and if you want to catch out any of my streams, feel free to check out my Twitch. Other than that, I'll see you next time. Take care everyone.